This update introduces some new sub-areas to the navigation, which is also referred to as the sitemap. Within the settings area, a new sub-area is added called Service Management. This new sub-area provides a quick way to view and manage all the service-related features, including the new entities added with this update. Each of the new service-related features found within the Service Management sub-area will be discussed in more detail in later sections of this module. The other change to the main navigation is the addition of a new entity called Social Profile, which appears as a sub-area within the service area. Social Profile is discussed in a separate lesson. There are a couple scenarios where you may not see these new sub-areas after you've installed the latest product update. If you're not seeing the new Service Management sub-area within the settings area after completing the install product updates process, it may be that your browser has cached the web pages. Either clear your browser cache or use Ctrl plus F5 to force a refresh. If your organization has made any customizations to the navigation prior to applying this update, such as adding, removing, or renaming areas or sub-areas, these new sub-areas will not be added. Documentation about how to add these sub-areas will be provided so you can manually add them using the provided XML. Microsoft also plans to provide a solution that can be imported which includes the new items. Besides the addition of some new sitemap navigation items and some new entities, there's also been some changes to some of the forms for existing entities. The first one we'll look at is the case entity. One thing to keep in mind as we're talking about these form modifications to the default entities is that each of these default entities has two form definitions by default. We're currently looking at the case entity. I'm going to choose Customize Entity. Then I'm going to click Forms. And we'll see that there's two main form definitions by default. The first one we'll look at here is called Information. This is the default form that has existed since the initial release of Microsoft Dynamics CRM. Starting recently with the Microsoft Dynamics CRM 2013 release, a new form definition was released for each of these different default entities, and it's named based off the name of the entity. So here we're looking at the case entity, and you can see that this new form definition is named Case. If we were looking at the account entity, we'd also see there's an information form, but a new form called Account. So your organization might be using one or the other of these forms, or you might have introduced your own forms by adding a new form within the customization area. So the thing to understand is that the forms that are modified are only the new form definitions that are named the same as the entity. So if you're currently using the information form, that form is not modified by applying these updates. It's only the case form. So also if you had any new customized forms, those would not be modified either. It's only this case form specifically. So next we'll take a look at what exactly is added to this case form. Instead of looking at this from within the form customization section, let's open up one of the case records. One of the first things you might notice is that there's a new lookup field for entitlement. So this links to the new entity that's introduced with this release called entitlement. That entity is discussed in more detail in a later lesson. Also, you see that there's a subgrid to show all the associated entitlements for this case. So that's new. We'll also see that there's an applicable SLA section which is used for the new SLA feature that's available as part of this release. Underneath here I'll see that there's a new tab called Case Relationships, which includes the previously existing similar cases view, as well as new views for merged cases and child cases. The merged cases and child cases views are related to new functionality that's available to be able to merge cases or have parent-child case relationships. In addition, there's an additional details section, which includes some additional fields such as escalated and escalated on, which are new fields, and some additional fields that are related to SLA. Additionally, there's another tab called Social Details that has information related to capturing data about social profiles and that type of information related to a case record that might have came from a social network such as Facebook or Twitter. Finally, within the Articles and Contract Information section, there is a set of fields related to KB articles and contracts. Another thing you might notice changed on the form is the addition of some new commands on the command bar. So you'll see buttons such as Apply Routing Rule, and you'll also see things such as Create Child Case and a few other things. Each of those are related to features that are discussed in later lessons. So as you've seen, this is one of the default forms that has been modified. And because there are modifications like this is the reason that installing the product updates does not automatically enable these new features by default. You have the ability to control when you want to do this. So once you've done some testing and understand what gets changed on the forums, you can choose which of these changes you want to keep, which of these different components you want to move around on the form, and maybe some of these components you want to remove from the form. So you have the flexibility to do this on your own terms. It could be over the weekend, whenever you want. So these changes will not happen automatically, and they are limited to the default form definitions that are named the same name as the entity. And here we looked at the case entity. The next two default forms we'll look at are account and contact. Besides those two and case, the only other additional form that we'll talk about later is the queue form has been modified as well. Those are really the four main entities that have been modified. Any additional entities or any of your custom forms, as we mentioned, are not modified as part of this update. Before we switch to looking at the account and contact forms, there is one additional case form that has been modified, and that's the Quick Create form. The Quick Create form type is a new form type that was introduced in Microsoft Dynamics CRM 2013. When I choose Create here, this will show me all the different entities that have Quick Create forms available. Here I see the case entity. When I choose that, the Quick Create form for the case entity appears. A couple things have changed. One is the addition of the Assign to Others field. Another thing that changed is the parent case field, which is related to creating parent-child case relationships, which will be talked about later. Another thing, again, is the addition of the entitlement lookup field to associate an entitlement with this case. And then there's also first response by and resolve by field, which is related to SLA. Another one is the addition of a contact lookup here. So those are some of the changes introduced to the Quick Create form. So you could choose which of those changes you want to keep, or which ones you want to remove, or maybe move around some of those fields. So I've switched over to the accounts area to look at the account form changes. So there's not as much that changed for the account and contact forms. They really have the exact same changes on both of them. The one change you'll notice is that there is a new subgrid added for active entitlements. So again, this is related to the entitlements feature that will be discussed later, so you can see all the different entitlements associated with this account record. The only other change are some relationships that appear. So when I navigate here next to the record name, I see all the different related entities that are set to appear. One of these is the social profiles entity relationship, and another one again is entitlements. So if you didn't want any of those, the way you could do that is to go to the form customization. And once I go to navigation, you'll see that these are items that appear here, entitlements and social profiles. So if I wanted to rearrange those or remove those, I have the ability to do that to meet my business needs. So as mentioned, the contact entity has the same type of changes as the account entity. You'll notice that there's an entitlement subgrid, and then the only other change is the relationships that appear, social profiles and entitlements. So you can choose to rearrange those or remove them depending on what you need. So the three forms that we looked at that are out-of-the-box entities that have default forms that were modified were account, contact, and case. One other form definition that was changed is for the queue entity, and that will be discussed in more detail in a later section that's focused on the different queue enhancements included with this release. There is one other form change I almost forgot to mention, and that's on the user form. The only thing that changed is the addition of a subgrid called queues I'm a member of. So this is in relation to the new private queues feature that we'll be talking about later, where it shows you all the different queues that this person is a member of. One of the new features is the introduction of parent-child hierarchies for cases. Parent-child cases help your service organization track multiple issues within one case. When a service rep needs to track a case where work needs to be done by other teams, or they need to track the same issue for multiple customers, the service rep can create a primary case called the parent case, and then create a secondary case called a child case. Two things to be aware of is that there's only one level of hierarchy supported. So if you have a parent case with multiple child cases, those child cases cannot be the parent of other child cases. The other thing to be aware of is that there's currently a limit of 100 child cases for each parent case. Let's take a look at some settings you can modify to control the behavior of parent-child hierarchies. First, I'm going to navigate to Settings, and then within Settings, I'll navigate to Service Management, and here I'll find that there's an option for Parent and Child Case Settings. The first configuration setting is the ability to control which case attributes will be inherited from the parent case to the child case. So once you have a parent case and you add a new child case to it, the field values for these different fields will be inherited as the default values on that child case. So I could choose to add additional fields. By default, it will automatically have populated all the different required fields on that entity. So now by adding this additional field, anytime I create a new child case, it's going to take the values from these three different fields on the parent case and set that as the default value on the new child case. So those values could be changed later. The other thing to keep in mind too is this is a one-time operation. It happens at the time of creation. So similar to other mapping functionality within CRM, it's a one-time thing when you're creating that relationship. If you go ahead and change the value on the parent case, it does not change the value on the child case. The other setting you can configure is the Cascade Closure Preference option. And you can see by default it's not selected, and what that's going to do then is if you have one parent case and 10 child cases, you're able to close that parent case without those child cases being closed. Also, you could close any of the child cases without closing the parent case. So if I select this checkbox, I can choose either the two different radio buttons here. The first one is close all child cases when their parent case is closed. So if I have that set, and I'm in that scenario where I have one parent case and 10 child cases, if any of those child cases are still open, closing that parent case would automatically close all the child cases. If I choose this second option, what that's going to do is it's going to restrict me from closing the parent case until all the child cases are closed. So now I'll go ahead and save these settings and demonstrate creating a child case from a parent case. I'll switch to the service area, open up an existing case record. So there are multiple ways that you can associate a parent case to a child case or vice versa. One of the ways is from within a parent case, I can choose to add a child case here, or if I scroll down, I'll see that under case relationships, I can see all the currently related child cases, and I have a plus option to add a new child case. I'm going to choose the command bar option. And you'll see this opens up the quick create form for case, and based off of those case inheritance settings, it defaults the customer value, case title, and case type. Also, you can see that the parent case field is populated to maintain that relationship from this child case to that existing parent case. I'm going to change the name here. Click Save. And now you can see in the child cases subgrid that case appears. Also, based off of those case settings, if I tried to resolve this case, since this child case is open, it would prevent me from doing that. Another way I can associate a parent case to child cases is to go back to the cases area. I can select multiple cases here, and one of the options is associate child cases. So I can specify which of those cases is the parent case, and the other ones will be the child cases. And that's all you need to do. Another new case-related feature is the ability to merge cases. One of the common reasons for needing to merge cases are that the same customer opens up multiple cases for the same issue. For example, a person might log a support case through a web portal, but then they may also try contacting by phone if they have not received a response. If the support rep does not realize there was an existing case, it may result in a duplicate. Another possible scenario is that multiple people from the same company might open up a case for the same issue. For example, a network outage experienced by multiple people within the company. The ability to merge records was previously available for account and contact, but the ability to merge cases is new. You'll also see that the experience is slightly different. When you merge accounts or contacts, you can only merge 2 records at once. With cases, you can merge up to 10 active records at once. All the merged cases will be marked canceled, and only the primary case will remain active. All the activities, notes, and attachments of the merged cases will be reparented to the primary case. Once cases are merged, the operation cannot be undone. Let's take a quick look at the merged case experience. When you're looking at a list of cases, you'll notice that if you choose 2 or more records, a Merge Cases option appears on the command bar. And as mentioned before, with cases you can merge up to 10 records. Here I'm going to choose 4 of them, and I'm going to click Merge Cases. One thing you'll notice is that the dialog that appears is different than what you might be used to with merging accounts or contacts. With accounts or contacts, it would show you the one record on the left and the other record on the right, and you'd be able to choose the individual field values from each of those that you want to keep. You could choose maybe to even choose all the ones that contain data to help you quickly identify what are the values that you want to keep from each record. The only thing I can do here is I can choose which one's going to become the primary record. So it's not allowing me to choose the individual field data from each of these. What's going to happen is whatever one I choose as the primary, it's going to keep all the field data from that record. All these other records, though, the attachments, activities, and notes will be merged into this primary record. The other thing to be aware of too is that on the case form, I'll be able to see that relationship from the parent case to all the different cases that were merged inside of it. So here in this case, I'm going to choose item defective on delivery from Maria Campbell. I'm going to choose merge. And it does show that those were merged successfully. So I'll find the one from Maria Campbell and open up that record. So within this primary record, within the list of activities and notes, I should be able to see any of those activities and notes from those merge records that have been reparented to this record. Also, if I scroll down to the bottom, I can see that there's a case relationships tab, and by default within this tab there's a subgrid called merge cases where I can quickly locate any of the cases that have been merged with this parent case.